For this second design, how do we read the diagram? So let's review very quickly. So you can see the empty diamond here is pointing to the container. So we got one container students, another container the course. How do we read it? So take a look at this container here. Students being the container contains multiple, 0 or more, course objects as its courses, and CS for short. That's one interpretation. Another one, another modeling detail you have to pay attention to is the course being the container contains a single faculty object as its prof. Okay, and then symmetrically here we say faculty over here being the container contains, you can see that's pointing to the container, contains 0 or more or just multiple course objects as its teaching duties. So here we're talking about 3 different aggregation links, right? That's namely the courses and also the prof and also the teaching. And only the prof is single value containee, whereas the TE, the teaching duties, and also the enrolled courses, they are multi-valued containees. So these are the modeling details we want to pay attention to, right? Accordingly, let's suggest the following implementation. I intentionally omit the details for the implementation because it's simply following the programming pattern that we learned before. So it will be up to you to really put it into Eclipse to do your practice. Okay. Let's say we got a students, we got ID, we got courses, and also we got an auxiliary counter, right? And also we can simply initialize the student with an ID, and also we can add a course. You can see here it's also call by value. We already reviewed call by value in the earlier video, so I'm not going to talk about it again in the current one. And also we can get the list of courses over here. You also know how to do it. And let's say talk about the course class. We got title, and also we got the faculty. It's a single value containee, just the prof, right? We have seen that already. And what about faculty? Similar to the students, we got a name for the faculty. We got a list of teaching duties, the teaching courses, and also auxiliary counter. And we can initialize the faculty's name, Jackie or Jonathan, for example. And also we can add a teaching duty to, for example, we want Jackie to teach one more course. And in that case, we'll add one course into his teaching duties. And also we can get all the teaching duties for a particular faculty member being the context objects as well. Right, so these are the 3 classes, very simple and straightforward implementations, but we want to see how we can build the aggregated object structure at the runtime. Like before, you can see the slides for the entire JUnit test method, but let's now visualize it on the iPad. Okay, let's take a look. Right, in this case, it's going to be slightly more complicated because we got 3 kinds of objects that will be instantiated at the runtime. We got students, we got course, and also we got faculty, right? So I'm just including them here just for your information. But I'm assuming that we know very well how to visualize them based on our learning for the review tutorial series. Okay, let's take a look. Line by line. The first one, let's now use highlighter. Let's say here we have the faculty P will be a new faculty, simply Jackie. So why don't we do that first? So we're going to create a faculty over here. Okay, let me copy the objects here, and then I'll paste it over here. So we're creating it. And just to be matching the color for the highlighter, so I'm going to put it here. Okay. So we got, it's P. Okay. So P is pointing to this faculty objects over here. Let me just get a little bit closer. That's touching. And then it's going to be of name, Jackie. Initially, the teaching duties can just be an array of certain size, where every slot will just be null. So that will be, the name will be just Jackie. And then this is just an array of certain size. Okay, let's not worry about the exact size, but for now, I'm just going to say maybe 0 over here, and also 1. Okay, that's about P. And let's see the next one. What about the students' objects? Let's say this is the student object over here, and then it's going to be stored for its address into variable s. Right, let's now create the student objects. So student objects over here with ID and also CS for courses, right? Before I do that, let me just move the faculty to over here. So we got enough space. Let's say we got faculty over here, okay? And we got, let's say we got the students over here. And it's going to be pink. Okay. And it's going to be stored in the variable s. So s is pointing to the student objects over here. What's the ID for the students? Jim. ID is simply just a name. So Jim. What about the courses? Well, for the courses, it will just be an array of certain size. Again, the precise size is not really so relevant for the discussion, but I'll just draw certain fixed size over here. And we're going to get different indices. Let me just put 0 and 1. All right, so that's about the student objects. And let's now create. It seems like we got to create 2 courses objects. That's what we got to do. We got course over here and course over here. 2030 and 3311, like what we did earlier, right? That one's straightforward. Let's take a look. Let's just still build it, just for completeness for the example discussion. So copy that. So let me just do that quickly. Just bear with me. We're going to get one course over here, and then one course over here, right? I got only limited space, so that's why I gotta compromise a little bit about the spacing and the arrangement. But for your case, if you want to grab a piece of paper, you definitely got enough space for you to rearrange the structure. Okay, so both of them will be green. And one will be for 2030, the other one will be for 3311. Let's now do that. Okay, 2030 and also 3311. EECS2030, this object over here. The title, Advanced OOP. Okay, let me just put it here. Advanced OOP. And also we got software design, whose address is stored in 3311. So EECS3311, pointing to this object here. And the title for the course will be software design. Software design. And the prof for both objects over here are simply just null to begin with. We haven't set it yet. We'll do that in the next line. Let's see the next line. Let's use orange. We're going to set a prof for 2030 and 3311. And we have the same arguments over here. And I'm not going to repeat the details about callback value. You can do that yourself. But you can see the argument is simply P over here, the same. Meaning that we're going to create some sharing. Meaning that 2030 and 3311, they will share the same instructor. That's very common for aggregation. So you're just going to call the setProf method over here. Let's see, setProf. So that should be for the course. I don't really have it here, but it's it should be there in the course class, right? We have seen that already. So that means for 2030, the prof is going to be P, which will be Jackie. Right? And let's now do EECS2030. That's set prof. That's going to be Jackie. So that's going to point to this faculty object over here. And what about the second one? 3311 will also set a prof to be Jackie. So that's set prof. So now it is going to point to this faculty objects over here. Right? So now we got some aliasing. Right? You can see this link over here. And this link over here, they're pointing to the same object. Definitely there are 2 aliases for the same objects. Let's now do more. And the next one, let's see here we got P dot, sorry, let me get a highlighter here. So what about maybe purple? P dot add teaching 2030, P dot add teaching 3311. Meaning that we're going to add the teaching for P. So that's a context object, right? Just simply add something into the array and increment the counter, right? Those details you should know from before. Let's see this. So 2030 and also 3311, okay? So the first one will be 2030. So that means index 0 for P is going to point to wherever 2030 is pointing to, which is over here. So 0 should actually go to, let me try to not cross the line as much as possible, just over here. And then the next one will be at 3311. So that will be stored at index 1. So that should point to 3311 over here. Okay, and then let's now do the next one. we're gonna add the courses. Let me now use maybe let me still use the purple. So s.add course 2030 and also s.add course 3311. Right? You can see here 2030 is going to be taken by, it's going to be taught by P, but it's going to be taken by also S. So that's about the sharing, right? You can see 2030 being shared. Just for 2030 specifically, you can already see the sharing that we're having. But diagrammatically, you will see that as well. How do we visualize over here s.add course? So S is actually over here. So that's the student, the context objects. S over here, and then let me not highlight it. It looks a little bit terrible when you got that combination. All right, so now first of all, we're gonna add 2030. So that means over here at index 0, so that will be the first enrolled course for S, which is Jin. So that should be 2030, right? So 2030 is pointing to over here. So that means we should maybe try this way. So this is pointing to 2030 over here. And the second course is going to be 3311, also for S. Index 1 is going to point to 3311. So now let's now do this. So it's pointing to 3311. Let me draw a little bit better. So hopefully that will appear a little bit better on your notes. Okay, 3311. All right, so far so good. And you can see that here we also got, again, aliasing. Specifically, what about for this object over here? Let's say for this particular objects. Let me now try to do a little bit of points over here. Let me use pink to just emphasize for this particular one. This particular course objects have several aliases, right? Number one, it is being pointed to by 2030, right? EECS2030. It's also pointed to by the first course of P. And also it's being pointed to by the first course of S. So these are the three aliases. Let me just write it down. So it's going to be 1 and also 2 and also 3. What are they? Number 1 is EECS 2030. Number 2 is, what about this link? It's basically P dot get teaching. You will get this particular array and then index 0. And similarly, what about number 3? Number 3 will be this particular link, right? This link over here. So that link is going to be also at index 0, happen to be. So it's going to be s.get courses and then go to index 0 of the array. So s.get courses at index 0. So these are the three aliases for the same objects. You can actually try to argue something similar. For example, for, let's say, this object over here. How many aliases do we have? That's an exercise for you. It should be this one here, and also this one over here. Right? Do the same exercise just like what I did. Okay, as a remark. Let's now do some assertion for this example, shall we? Let's look at the first one. The first one here, I want to show you a different way of looking at that. You can definitely try both ways if you wish. Okay, the first one. You can see we're trying to say get prof over here and also get prof over here. So what is the context object for get prof? It will be whatever that's to the left of the dot. So that'll be EECS 2030 and also s.getCS at index 0. If you notice what I had earlier, you can see this guy here is this guy here. And this guy here is exactly this guy here, right? We said these are the aliases for the same objects, meaning that this part here and this part here, they are actually referring to the same objects. Are you convinced? If not, let's take a look. EECS 2030 is referring to this course objects. And also s.getCS in index 0, s.getCourses at index 0 according to the link is also pointing to the same course objects. Now, given the same course object, when you say get prof, is it going to be the same? Of course. And when you say get prof, it's simply going to refer to the same prof, which will be Jackie objects over here. So that's why this should be true. So try to understand what I'm saying here. So it's really based on your understanding about the aliases over here, right? So these are the aliases, as I try to explain from before. Okay, so this should be true. Let's take a look at the second one. Similar idea. You can see also we try to say get prof over here, and also get prof. But now this time it's a little bit kind of different, because now the course object they're referring to are actually different course objects. So let's take a look. Why don't I try to highlight them? This one is s.get courses at index 0. So s.get courses at index 0, if you follow the link, it is going to be this course over here, right? This course. And if you look at s.get courses at index 1, it's the index 1. s.get courses at index 1 is referring to this particular course object, right? So definitely the context object over here for get prof. The context, these two context objects are this and this respectively. Are they going to get you the same prof? It happens to be, because they share the same containee, the prof. This course.get prof is going to get you the Jackie objects. This course.get prof is also going to give you the same Jackie objects. So that's why this will actually give you true, right? So whether or not the context object is the same, well, if the context object happen to be the same, which is in this case, right? This one I want to highlight to you. Context objects is the same objects. Versus over here, the context object over here, they're different objects. This object over here, and also, okay, let me just highlight a little bit better. This object here, and also this object here, and the context object is actually different objects. Different objects, right? Diff, I just write it in the short form, different objects, but they can still, once you get, say get prof, you can still refer to the same prof objects over here, right? That's something I want to show to you. So this is also going to be true. Okay, let's see the final two. The next one, let's see, EECS2030 equals s.get courses index 1. Well, this one seems to be okay, right? You can see 3311 is pointing to, let me just use a laser. 3311 pointing to this object here, easy. s.get courses at index 1 is indeed referring to this object over here. So they're referring to the same. So that one should be true. So this equals here should be true. What about the final one? s.get courses index 1. s.get courses index 1, we know that is going to refer index 1 is going to refer to this object over here. What about p.get teaching 1? Okay, p the faculty .get teaching duties is referring to this array. Index 1 is also referring to this this object over here. So they are referring to the same, right? So for the final one, let me just say here, let me just try to highlight for you. s.get courses 1 is really referring to this object over here. Okay, let me draw a little bit better. So it's really referring to this particular object over here. And then somehow I got this crossed. Okay, so s.get courses 1 is referring to this object over here. And then p.get teaching at index 1. So p.get teaching over here at index 1 is also referring to this object. So they are really referring to the same, right? Okay, so you can see I'm just trying to use the same diagram to really answer the question related to all the assertions. I think it's still clear. It's not really that messy, but you really want to know how you can trace it, right? It's something we have done before, but it's always good to really review what we did earlier. So this will also be true. Okay, so that's about the two examples we will do. Also about how to build aggregated object structure from scratch, right? So that's about it. You can, if you go back to the slides, you will see this is the test that we just went over in complete details. And I didn't really give you the code intentionally. You really should actually build out the code by yourself into Eclipse. That's an exercise for you that I will expect you to complete it. All right, so the next one, the next video will talk about how, given that the aggregated links have been built, how we can navigate among objects.